Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. Thank you so much for coming. I will read out a brief statement before I take your questions. First, let me be very clear. We reject the targeting of civilians by anyone. Everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. And international law and international humanitarian law must be upheld and respected by all. We also need some perspective here. What we're seeing right now is not a war on Hamas, but a war on the Palestinian people. The forced mass expulsion of 1 million people, the indiscriminate war and bombings of civilian infrastructure, schools, medical centers, homes, markets, and the prevention of the supply of water, food, fuel, electricity, and medicine from reaching Gaza have already taken a terrible toll. Official numbers this morning find more than 2,850 Palestinians killed in Gaza and the West Bank, and some 12,000 injured. The real number is much higher. Rescue teams have been unable to reach victims. Some have been targeted by Israeli bombardments, as you have followed, when they tried to rescue the victims. Palestinians being targeted as they try to leave their homes towards the south of Gaza. There are hundreds, if not thousands, buried as we speak under rubble. Unable to, and the rescue teams unable to rescue them. 13 journalists have been killed, Palestinian. More than 1,000 children have been killed so far in Gaza. Let that number sink. 1,000 children. Gaza's population is young, as you all know. Of the 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza, there are 1.1 million children. 50 families have been wiped out, completely off the record. I mean, the official registrar record. The sad fact is, a Palestinian is being killed every 5 minutes. A Palestinian is being killed every 5 minutes. Mostly civilians, families, kids, grandparents. But it's not just the killings. Imagine the choices you have to make. Our families, as we speak, have to make. They leave their homes for an uncertain destination and maybe live, and it's a big maybe, or stay in their homes and likely be murdered. 2 days ago, 70 people fleeing the north for the supposed safety of the south were killed en route in an Israeli airstrike, as you all have followed. Yesterday, 71 Palestinians were killed in the supposed safety of Gaza's south in another Israeli airstrikes. People are waiting for 7 hours, merely to get water. What do you do if you are in a wheelchair in such situation in the Gaza Strip? What do you do if you need dialysis or have cancer treatment scheduled or any kind of regular medical attention? Hospitals have been targeted, bombarded. Doctors, nurses, medical staff have been murdered. Even the dead aren't protected. Even the dead aren't protected. Bodies have been stored in ice cream vans because morgues are overwhelmed and overflowing. Mass graves have been dug. What Israel is doing amounts to clear collective punishment, and all of the above are acts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. But what we need urgently right now is an immediate ceasefire. We need humanitarian corridors to bring the aid now. Bring the medicine, food and water to people. We reject completely, we reject the population transfer of our people in Gaza and the attempted of that transfer mass expulsion towards Egypt. We will not allow another round of mass ethnic cleansing in Palestine. We will not allow for a second Nakba. We need a serious and enforced commitment to international law, international humanitarian law, and the rules of war as embodied in the Geneva Conventions. Otherwise, we will see more mass killings on our hands and more refugees, destitute and homeless. History is repeating itself. We also need, and this is a message for you, my dear friends, members of the press, we all need context. We need context. Snapshot press and media and politics has contributed to where we are today. We always need context. This did not start on the 7th of October. This year alone, more than 200 Palestinians were killed in the occupied West Bank before the 7th of October, making 2023 the deadliest year in the occupied West Bank since 2005. There have been years of settler violence, settler militias that included an arson attack that killed a child and his parents. And you all watched the massive attack on Hawara by settler militias recently, near Nablus, Hawara, running amok, burning shops, homes. Human rights organizations have concluded that Israel is operating an apartheid system in occupied territory, with settlers and the occupied Palestinian population living under separate legal systems, including Amnesty International here in the UK, the Human Rights Watch, Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem, and numerous Palestinian human rights organizations. There have been 16 years of misery in Gaza. Context is crucial. 16 years of utter misery since Israel blockaded the Strip in 2007, leaving people largely unable to leave and the area deprived of basic materials, construction and what have you, and other very necessary items that have caused poverty and unemployment to spike. Both poverty and unemployment in Gaza run at near 50%. And the United Nations calculates that the siege has cost Gaza's economy some $17 billion. The blockade has not only undermined civilian infrastructure from the area's only power station to sewage pipes, by the way, but undermined hopes for any future. As a generation was born and grew up while living in a cage. Cage. The Oslo Accords were signed 30 years ago this year by us, by the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. We committed 30 years ago to recognizing Israel, to committing to negotiations on non-violence, and to committing to international resolutions and international legitimacy. And we remain, until this very day, committed to these very three principles. But Israel has used these 3 decades not to set the stage for a two-state outcome, but to undermine it. It tripled, quadrupled its settlements and the number of settlers in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and I know you have the numbers. There have been 56 years of occupation, of military occupation. It is 75 years since Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from our homeland during the Nakba of 1947-49, including my own grandparents and parents. The Nakba is very much playing on the minds of Gaza people and Palestinians in the West Bank and Palestinians inside the 48 areas, Palestinians in the refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, and everywhere. The Nakba, as we speak now, is playing out. Overwhelmingly, the descendants of those who were displaced in 1948 are watching, descendants of refugees, as they contemplate whether to accept to leave their homes or not. Remember, 70% of Gaza's population are refugees, the descendants of refugees. Let's remember, none of these refugees that left in 1948 were ever allowed to return to their homes and lands, and properties and farms, including my own family. Instead, Israel enacted a law in 1950 allowing the nascent state to confiscate all Palestinian properties. This is the context, my friends. This is the context. And there is so much more. If you think Israel is justified in seeking revenge for what happened on the 6th of October, then please consider what Palestinians have been enduring for 100 years and more, during which they have never had a single day of freedom and self-determination. What we need right now is not revenge, but justice. Not war, but peace. We need to move forward, not backward. We need to be courageous, wise, and protect ourselves with international rules and values, with our shared universal values. We also look to the world to address the root causes of the Palestine issue, the denial of Palestinian human rights, legal, political, for a century, Israel's ever-deepening occupation of Palestinian land, and the continued plight of 6 million Palestinian refugees scattered all over must be addressed. And we look to you, the media, to provide the proper context. To be true to your very noble profession. To help set the stage for a fair, just and legal resolution to the Palestine issue in line with international law and resolutions. And this is off script. I have been really taken aback by some of the reporting in the UK and elsewhere. Reckless reporting does cost lives. Words can kill. So it is time, my friends, we reached a political solution. It is time we implement, not negotiate, we implement international resolutions, UN Security Council resolutions. It is time to see the establishment of a Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. It is time that we find a fair and just resolution to the Palestinian refugee issue. That is what we are asking for, and that is what international law and international resolutions demand. Thank you. And now we'll take some questions.
Thank you very much, James. James Landale at the BBC. Two questions, please. One is, what is your assessment of the British government's response to this crisis and the conflict? And secondly, can you give us your assessment of the tensions, of the violence within the West Bank at the moment, and how confident you and the PA are of keeping a lid on some of that violence? Thank you.
James, and thank you, James from the BBC, for the question about the assessment of the British government. I must say, the first week the government was off balance, completely, totally, utterly off balance. Statements could have been interpreted by the most extreme government in the history of Israel as a license and a green light to simply commit massacres and do as they wish. And in a government that has a person like Smotrich, who publicly publishes his ideology and his policies of giving the Palestinian people three choices: either they accept to live slaves in their own homeland, or they leave en masse, and the third option, they will be killed. With such a person who is the finance minister, you don't give any wrong indicators, or you watch your language as international actors. You make sure that they will not interpret it in any way or form. With such a person in the government who handles security, national security, Ben-Gvir, who has been in the last few days busy handing out machine guns to Israeli civilians, we must be very responsible. But I am really glad, maybe glad is not the word, relieved to see the beginning of change in the UK official statements. I've heard the Prime Minister yesterday saying that with full respect to international law and international humanitarian law, he should have said that minute one of the situation. That should not have been difficult for a Prime Minister of a country that has founded the post-World War II global-based order. The first General Assembly of the United Nations did not convene in New York. It was here in London. You contributed to creating this system, and therefore, at least, we hope it's not too late to stress the significance of rules. The situation in the West Bank, very acute, very acute. And James, there is no security solution to this. There is no military solution to this. Our biggest concern now is the provocations and the attacks by settlers, and they are going everywhere, and they are shooting without any accountability. Many have lost their lives. I counted some in the West Bank. Our eyes are on Jerusalem, and you know Jerusalem is the most sensitive spot of the Palestinian national mood, if I may. We expect provocations there. And provocations did happen already. Therefore, our role as Palestinian government is to provide protection for our people. This is our utmost priority. In Gaza, We want to immediately stop the aggression and the atrocities and the bombardments. We want a ceasefire, and we are working with all our international partners to do so here in the UK. I have had many meetings with senior ministers, officials, and what have you, and my colleagues all over the world are doing the same. Today, there will be a meeting with the US Secretary of State later this evening and the Palestinian leadership. And tomorrow there will be a meeting between President Abbas and President Biden. So efforts are tailored towards that. But in the discussion, we also want to make sure that our people in the West Bank and in Gaza and everywhere else are protected.
Thank you. Kitty Donaldson from Bloomberg News. I was wondering whether you could give us an update on when you think the Rafah border will be opened. And secondly, a question about the UK. There's been an uptick in both anti-Semitic violence and Islamophobic violence. What do you say to people who are agitating in the UK, and have you got any reassurance for members of your community?
Egypt has requested from day one the opening of Rafah crossing. Egypt has humanitarian convoys ready, waiting at the crossing, as you all know. But Israel has been denying that request until this very moment. We don't have any new information or update that Israel is considering this, and we have been pressuring all our international partners to actually allow for that crossing to bring in desperately needed humanitarian assistance. Yet we want to make sure that the Smotrich plan of mass expulsion and the second Nakba does not happen, and Egypt rejects that wholeheartedly. The crossing must be there for humanitarian issues, not to enable Israel to implement that plan. As for anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, this is not a religious conflict. This is not an ideological conflict. This is not a conflict between Jews and Muslims whatsoever. This is a political and legal conflict. And we must make sure that this is conveyed everywhere. You've seen the huge demonstration in London a couple of days ago. Many of those who took to the streets were Jewish people who support justice and international law, and I know many of them. And therefore, we have to be absolutely clear that we and the Palestinian cause has no space for bigots, racists, haters from any side. This is about upholding rights equally to all nations. And people need to understand that we, the Palestinian people, are not in oath with our occupiers because they are Jewish. It's ridiculous to propose even that had our oppressors been not Jewish, we would have been okay with them. No, this is about the fact of our oppression. And I must tell you, in the line of my career, I have come to encounter that the most vocal voices for Palestinian justice are Jewish, all over the world. So we need to stop this. And also we need to stop the Islamophobic remarks. This has cost life. In the US, you know what happened 2 days ago. A child, 6 years old, and his mother. The child died, his mother is in intensive care because of the Islamophobic. We need to stop this. The Palestine issue has nothing to do with all that. Nothing to do with all that. Israel, among its own soldiers, have Jews, Muslims, Christians. We, the Palestinian people, have Muslims and Christians. No one should hijack the cause towards their own agenda. This is a cause of justice, of law, of rights. And we respect all religions, and we are proud that Palestine has been the cradle and the homeland of all religions. And before 48, we have been so proud that there are Palestinian Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Okay?
I'm Jo Crawford from Times Radio. In terms of the hospitals in North Gaza at the moment, if there is an Israeli offensive, what will it mean in terms of trying to get humanitarian aid to those hospitals? Do you know how many people are still working in those hospitals or being treated in those hospitals?
I really don't have exact and updated information because it's evolving. But I know that 41 medical personnel have been killed until last night. I don't know even what the numbers now. And I know among them are very, very prominent doctors who provided lifeline to the hospitals in Gaza. That we know. We know the medical supplies are running out. We know that generators, because electricity is out, you know, there's a blackout in Gaza. We know that the generators that require fuel are running out. And you know the consequences of that? Forget about those who are targeted by airstrikes. The consequences on normal people who are on life machines and, you know, all that. Babies in incubators, etc. We know also that medical staff, medical teams have been targeted by airstrikes. You can see the footages and the images. So we can say that the health sector in Gaza is collapsing. Absolutely collapsing. And if we don't do, and please follow the WHO, follow the international organizations, they have been warning of an imminent, complete collapse of the health sector.
Michael Walker from Novara Media. You've suggested that commentary from UK politicians has shifted over the past week. I mean, it hasn't shifted that much, though. So government representatives and representatives for the opposition this morning refused to say that there was a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Both of them said there was a looming humanitarian crisis or a potential humanitarian crisis. So I wanted to get you to respond to that. On this conflict, and are you in contact with them about the positions they're taking?
To the second part of your question, yes, I am in contact with the government constantly from day one, and we are discussing all these issues, not only in private but also in public. For instance, when the Foreign Secretary tweeted the first tweet, I tweeted it back, saying that this could be interpreted in a very different way, Mr. Cleverly. We need to. So it's private conversations and public conversations to make sure that our opinion is very well known by them and by you in the media and in the public opinion. Because this is a very grave matter. Sometimes you cannot just leave it to conversations. Your first question, yes, I said earlier that the government in the first week was off balance. So what we heard over the last 2 days was the beginning, this is what I said, the beginning of regaining that balance and including the commitment to international law, which is very important. And by the way, this is not too many, this is all what we are asking for 100 years. I mean, we want equal commitment to agreed upon rules. That's it. That civilians should not be targeted, that humanitarian assistance should be granted, that a political resolution in line with international resolutions is granted. So the inclusion of that is important, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Now we need the UK and the rest of the world to actually enforce international law. Enforce, not just talk about international law. Okay. We're going to have all the questions, so let's dive. Why don't we go from the end and then come? I'm sorry. I know your hands. Why don't you watch who is? Because I'm not focused. Who's first? Go by first come, first serve.
Thank you. Joel Flynn, TRT World. I just want to ask you further about regional instability. This was something that Rishi Sunak mentioned at the top of his speech to Parliament yesterday. Very clearly, there are a lot of concerns among European leaders. How effective do you think European diplomacy is at the moment with regards to regional instability? And in addition, have you been in contact at all with Hezbollah and with Tehran? If so, what have they said to you? How worried are you that this could spiral into a broader conflict engulfing the whole region? Thank you.
We are worried, very worried. We do not want this to spiral regionally. We saw the tension in the north, borders with Syria and Lebanon. We know that the provocation started from Israel. Israel went and bombarded areas in Syria without any provocations from Syria, and Israel has killed your colleagues, journalists, as you know, in southern Lebanon 2-3 days ago. So there is provocations. We don't understand why the provocations now, what militarily Israel is trying to achieve. Is it interested in widening this? I don't understand, really. Will Hezbollah and Iran? We have no information. All what we need to make sure is that there is international immediate efforts to contain this. We know that the US is heavily involved, and I just told you there will be successive meetings in the coming 24 hours, all the way to President Biden and my president. We know Egypt is calling for an urgent summit this Saturday to contain all that you are asking about.
Sorry, can I just press you on the European diplomacy angle? Because it looks to be very disunited at the moment. There are a lot of concerns about Europe having very different perspectives and in some ways perhaps even making things worse.
No, we trust the European Union position, and we have worked with them over the last few days. What you have heard is some individual voices from the European Union, but the policy of the EU remains intact, and this is a policy that we appreciate and we support, and there is a lot of traffic between us and the European Union, yes. But what you heard about cutting aid and what you heard was individual isolated voices of the extreme right. Okay, let's go one by one, please.
Hi there, Alistair Snout from Reuters. You made it clear that you still see a political solution and a Palestinian state. I was just wondering, what discussions, if any, are you having with Israeli authorities? Could there be a scenario where the PA administers Gaza in exchange for the removal of Hamas? And is there any line that Israel could cross in Gaza which to you would take the two-state solution just off the table indefinitely? Thank you.
Let's be clear here. Gaza was under occupation, so this is very important. And this is not we saying, this is the UN saying, this is international. So Gaza was under occupation. The only difference is the occupation was exercised from without, not from within. So the two-state solution has been undermined by Israel over the course of 30 years. Now, there is absolutely no channels with Israel whatsoever. Our absolute priority right now is the safety of our people in Gaza. Palestine and the Palestinian people have one legitimate sole representation, that is the PLO, the Palestine representation, the Palestine Liberation Organization. Even Hamas does not claim to represent the Palestinian people. So the PLO is there, and the PLO's main and utter responsibility, is to stop the carnage, to protect the people. And to make sure that this will open a real, genuine horizon to end the injustice once and for all.
I would like to ask your comment about the Israeli ambassador to the UK's statement yesterday that there is no humanitarian issue in Gaza, and also what do you expect from the US President Joe Biden's visit to the region? Thank you.
Well, the Israeli propaganda has been ongoing for a long time, and that was part of it. Other Israeli senior officials said many other lies. I was on BBC Sunday morning show, and I heard their spokesman saying that no hospitals have been targeted and no hospitals will be targeted, and I had to call it out live on air. The issue is with you and with the media. How do we challenge this? How do we stop this? Because you have the numbers, you have the evidence, you have the people on the ground. Don't let this pass without challenging, really. So an Israeli ambassador to the UK said there is no humanitarian crisis. when 1 million people are asked to be forced out of their homes without electricity, food, medicine, is not a humanitarian crisis. When rockets and bombs are literally landing on their heads and families are being wiped out, is not a humanitarian crisis, then what is it? What is? So it's the media that need to. And I must say, you know, the first few days I was completely disheartened to see that the media has set a very wrong tone. Very wrong tone. You know, of my own experience, it all starts with the media, and then everybody else is stuck in that frame, in that paradigm. Words and terminology are crucial. From the beginning, Israel, from the first minute, Israel wanted to link the Palestinian people to Hamas, and then link Hamas to ISIS, i.e. linking ISIS to what? To the Palestinian people. When you all know ISIS is a group of criminals, mercenaries, who came from all over the world for a non-political madness. It's nothing to do with us and the Palestinian issue. But why all that linkage? That linkage is to justify the war of ethnic cleansing against our people. So please, 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 be careful. Pay attention. All what we need you to do is to be true to your great profession. Okay, and then we'll go to Sky because I know Dominic has been raising his hand for some time.
Thank you. Leonard Tobic, TNT Radio. What do you say to those members of the political profession and the media who choose to attribute blame on the basis of the last 10 days rather than the last 75 years?
Very problematic, very problematic, very problematic, really. And you have seen the interviews. I know you're referring to the interviews. You know our position. I've just said. And this position is not the last 7 days. This position has been there for 30 years. We really do believe that the way forward is via diplomatic, political, and legal means. We mean it, and we do it. These are not words, these are deeds. But our issue, my issue, and our issue with this whole logic by the media about the condemnation, for instance, is that the reason why they are asking is not because they don't know that you really do condemn in your heart and in your practice. It's to immediately frame you as the aggressor. That's it. Once you are there, then the rest is details, because then you are just defending it. And once you do that with the lack of symmetry, of course, targeting civilians must be condemned, is condemned by all sides, especially the side that has been at the brunt of this for 100 years. My own grandparents were forced out of their homes. I have lost family in the last, I know the price of losing civilians and not being protected. Those, I mean the civilians. However, when the BBCs and the Skies and the CNNs and all the mainstream media insist on this question for 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, 7 times, this is not because they don't know that we do actually condemn. This is so they frame the whole conversation. And the lack and the failure of the same institutions, media, international mainstream, to ask the very same question to the actual instigators of violence, which is the occupation. Is this for discussion that it is the occupier that instigates violence? Do I need to convince anybody that military occupation robs you of your humanity and of your identity and of your rights? Let alone colonization and apartheid and besiegement? And then in all these interviews, Israeli spokespeople, ministers, officials, what have you, are never asked that question. Why? Why? Tell you why. Because some in the international media are so adamant in portraying the Palestinian people in an apolitical, ahistorical snapshot. Let's catch this. And I said it on all these interviews. Did you invite me when 200 Palestinian innocent people were killed by militias in the West Bank? Why do you always invite me when the snapshot suits your narrative, suits the frame that you want to put for us, suits the box you want to box us in? We belong to a very historic civilization, culture, a culture of coexistence, a culture of acceptance, a culture of peace. Historically, look at our record. We have lived together from all faiths for millennia. My and our teachings refuse to target civilians. We are brought this way to protect civilians. So the conversation is put upside down. And we will not allow for this to happen anymore. Sky.
Thank you, Ambassador. Can I ask you about the regional stability issue? We seem to be at a very dangerous moment, with Iran warning of preemptive action, 2 US carrier groups in the area, Israel planning God knows what in Gaza. You've been a diplomat in the region for a long time. Can you put in perspective, we've seen so many dangerous moments come and go in the region, but historically, in perspective, how dangerous is this moment, do you think, compared to others we've had in the past? And how worried are you about the war expanding?
Very, very. Out of 10, 9. Very worried. And very worried because of the underestimation of the effect of what is happening on people, Dominic, on people. Not just movements and organizations and groups and arms and militias and all that, and states and non-state sector. On people. I am worried. I am worried about community cohesion and relations everywhere in the world. Because I don't see that international leadership that will cuddle and hug all of us equally and cool things down. But I'm hoping that the serious, round-the-clock efforts will succeed to contain this. But the last week was absolutely alarming. I'm sincerely hoping that we will see some change in that attitude starting from today and tomorrow. You choose.
Robert Carter from 5 Pillars News. Mr. Ambassador, I'm sure over the years you've asked the UK government why it won't recognise Palestine as a state even until today. Could you just tell me what the reason is that they normally give to you? And also with things like Israel's flag being projected on 10 Downing Street, and over the years I don't believe they've ever done the same for Palestine, do you feel a sense of betrayal that the UK failed to support Palestine in the same way that it's supporting Israel?
Betrayal is a strong word. I feel, again, a lack of balance here. Especially from the UK, which has very unique and special responsibility, historic, moral, legal and political, on the people of Palestine and the issue of Palestine. Let us remember, my friends, that it all started here in this country 106 years ago, the Balfour Declaration, that deny us our peoplehood, our nationhood. That declaration promised a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine and referred to us as non-Jewish minorities. So immediately, in these words, we have turned from indigenous, native, living there for millennia, the Canaanites, who have almost produced every civilization and every prophet, the birthplace of Christianity, we were turned into non-Jewish minorities. So the first step was depriving us, denying us our peoplehood, our nationhood. Then Britain, soon after, took control of Mandate Palestine, the mandate, remember? And in the agreement between Britain and the League of Nations, the mandate was supposed to give the right of self-determination and statehood to the Palestinian people. I don't need to tell you the history, this is not the time for it, but unfortunately the UK has ended its mandate and failing to respect its own responsibilities with the League of Nations to recognize the state of Palestine and Palestinian right to self-determination. So we have been hit twice in that period, denying the right to recognize us as a nation and denying the right to recognize us as a state. And this continues until today. So
we are linking to your question. We are hoping that this is a moment when the UK would actually, and this is not a blame game. History is a history. This is about leadership and statesmanship. We are hoping this is a moment when the UK would really begin to correct the past and help us usher a different path towards the future. Recognition of the state of Palestine is not a gift to be given by the UK government. It's a duty, it's a responsibility, and it is a right of the Palestinian people that has been long, long overdue, at least 100 years overdue.
Thank you. Helen Hodnot from LBC. The Israeli ambassador appeared on LBC this morning and said that Hamas is creating propaganda. She referred to the attack that you referred to over the weekend, which killed about 70 people, and said that that was a fabrication and that the visuals were fabricated by Hamas. I was just wondering if you think that Hamas is also creating propaganda.
Well, I don't know. And unfortunately, we are not on the ground. That's why we need the international community to be on the ground. The Red Cross has been demanding publicly from Israel to be on the ground. We need these accounts to be verified in all sides. Not mouthpieces and spokespeople, not propaganda people. We must have verified accounts by the international community. Let the Red Cross go, come in, assess the situation, convey it to the world. Let the United Nations be there. You have UNRWA, which is the biggest UN agency providing services to the Palestinian people. So I know there is a lot of misinformation here and there. But, however, you know, you're talking about real people here. So whitewashing this and gaslighting this also will not work. I lost a number of my extended family, and I know them, and I know their names, and then I know their dreams, and so we also need to make sure that the truth is conveyed, and the best way to do so is by making sure that international media is present. Do you know that Israel has denied international media and the protection of international media? There is no real international media now. We need them there. We need you there. Okay, maybe we should take the last 3 questions, please.
Hi, Alex Morris from the Middle East Monitor. You were talking about misinformation. I just wanted to get your take and delve a bit deeper into that. Just yesterday, the BBC News had to apologise for calling the pro-Palestine protests we saw across the UK as pro-Hamas. On BBC Radio this morning, we had the Development Secretary Andrew Mitchell saying that Hamas is the reason for the water shortages in Gaza is that Hamas are making weapons out of the pipes. I mean, completely unfounded accusation. What's your take on misinformation, and are there any specific examples that have particularly irked you?
Well, there is a lot of examples, and I'm not so sure if this is the time to talk about it, but there is a lot of misinformation. And the UK media particularly needs to be more careful, much more careful. And there is a lot of insinuating in some of the covering. Like the headline is about Israeli children being killed, but then the photo on the Times is the Palestinian children that have been bombarded. And what is the image we want to convey? What's exactly the why are you putting Palestinian children when your headline is Israeli children? We need to make sure that press media is there to simply tell the truth. The truth. The truth. Media should not work as political campaigning agencies. And I tell you again, the last week, I was completely and utterly disheartened by the lack of focus, the lack of carefulness. And don't get me started, please.
Thank you, Ambassador. What are the possibilities at this stage for diplomacy? And what role will the PLO play?
There is a lot of traffic, and it's with the Palestinian leadership, the PLO and the PA. A lot of traffic from regional actors. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak spoke to my president yesterday. The King of Jordan was here also the day before yesterday. There is a lot of diplomatic efforts as we speak, right across the board, the globe. And there is such efforts, and some of them is really, really genuine and focused to stop this carnage and stop this madness. And by the way, not only to stop, but to also create a different path that is as important as stopping the carnage, because we don't want this carnage to visit us again. This is not the first time Gaza is bombarded. This is not the first time we see such images. We want to make sure that once and for all, we are done with such horror.
Zuhal Demirci, Anadolu Ajansı, Anadolu Agency, Türkiye. Mr. Zomlot, as you know, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International verified that Israel has used white phosphorus in Gaza and Lebanon. Do you think that Israel will be held to account for its actions, and are there any steps taken in this direction? Thank you.
Thank you. The use of white phosphorus and the use of the disproportionate lethal bombs and what have you, without listing all that, is a war crime. And following your question, may I call on Mr. Karim Khan, the prosecutor of the ICC, to take his job immediately and with responsibility. The state of Palestine has acceded to the Rome Statute. We have actually given full mandate many years ago to the ICC to investigate war crimes in the occupied territory of Palestine. By all sides, investigate war crimes in our occupied territory. This is the time for Karim Khan and for the ICC to investigate the white phosphorus and investigate any crimes that have been committed from all sides. And we shall accept full responsibility. However, international actors, the US included, and the UK, should stop blocking the ICC from doing its work, its business, its mandate. It's the reason why it was created. The international community, the West, must stop shielding Israel from any accountability. And the solution to your question is the ICC. Okay, I think we're done here. I'm sorry, I have to run and leave. Thank you very much. Thank you, really.